I've been running nights most of my life. Less traffic, fewer headaches, radio low, highway steady. By 2021, I'd had my CDL for almost 3 decades. Not much surprises me anymore. This was Barstow. Summer, dead hour. Around 3 a.m. I was headed west on I-40 and decided to pull into one of those half-lit rest areas outside town. The kind with noisy lights, 2 trucks idling, and a restroom building that never quite looks clean no matter how often they hose it down. Every stop is the same. Park where I can pull right back out, set the brakes, quick bathroom trip, walk around, tires, straps, doors. Maybe punish myself with whatever vending machines pretend is coffee. I wasn't wiped out, just that burned-eyed tired you get after a long stretch. Still sharp, still paying attention. I did my walk around, climbed back into the cab, cracked the window to let in the desert air, and leaned back for a minute before rolling again. That's when I heard scraping just behind my door, low to the ground. You hear noises all the time out here, so I didn't jump. Probably a loose bungee or a stray dog nosing around. It stopped, then came back again, a little louder and clearly coming from under the trailer. Annoyance beat curiosity. I baby my equipment. Anything scraping against it at 3 a.m. gets checked. I grab my flashlight, shove my boots on, and climbed down. The lot was quiet, just reefers humming and trash wrappers blowing around, so any new noise really stood out. I walked along the side of the truck, sweeping the beam under the trailer. Something moved. At first I thought some big desert coyote had wedged itself under there, but then it unfolded. Awkward, slow, definitely human. A woman crawled out from under my trailer. Her clothes were filthy, hair matted, hands torn up, dust sticking to her face. She was shaking so hard her elbows wobbled as she tried to steady herself. I stepped back automatically, more startled than anything. She lifted her head, eyes wide like she'd been running for miles. Her voice was barely a breath. "Don't let him see me." No explanation, no introduction, just that. Everything in me shifted from irritated to alert. People don't hide under trucks for fun. Something was wrong. I kept my voice calm. "Who? Are you hurt? Do you need an ambulance?" She didn't answer. Her eyes kept looking past me toward the open part of the lot. She looked like she expected someone to appear any second. Before I could ask again, I heard footsteps, coming around the back of the trailer on the passenger side. Calm, like someone taking a late-night stroll. The woman's whole body tensed. Then she looked at me with one last desperate expression I still remember too clearly. "Please." Then she went rigidly silent. A man stepped into the edge of my flashlight beam. Jacket, ball cap, nothing out of place. Hands visible, no weird twitching. Just a late-night traveler on foot, which already didn't make sense. Nobody walks around a Barstow rest stop at 3 a.m. unless they're sleeping in their car. And he didn't look like that either. He gave me a polite smile. "Hey, driver," he said like this was perfectly normal. "You, lose something under there?" That question hit sideways. I flicked the beam back toward the woman to see how she'd react. She was gone. I swung the flashlight all around, under the trailer, around the tires, behind me. No movement, no sound, no shadow shifting, nothing. I assumed I was so tense and focused on that weirdly calm man that I missed the woman running, and barefoot like that, there wouldn't have been footsteps to hear. The man didn't react to my sudden scanning. He just stood there with that too-easy smile. "Everything all right?" he asked. "Heard some noise. Figured maybe someone was messing with your rig." His tone was chill, like he wasn't worried at all. Like he wasn't fishing for information, just waiting for me to give some. "Thought it was a dog," I said. "Looks like it kept going." "Oh yeah?" he said. "Lot of strange folks out here. You see anyone else walking around? Woman maybe? I thought I saw someone near the trucks earlier." There it was. Too specific, too smooth. I kept my face neutral, didn't see anyone. He nodded, kept his hands where I could see them, but his eyes stayed locked on mine. Didn't look at my truck, Didn't check the area once. Just stared. Quiet. Calculating. "Where are you headed?" he asked. I gave him the least helpful answer possible. "West." He smirked like he knew exactly what I was doing. "Well, I'll let you rest. Safe trip." He gave a small two-finger wave and walked off into the shadows on the far side of the lot. I watched him go, waiting to hear a car door slam, an engine start, anything to show he belonged to a vehicle. Nothing. No headlights, no taillights. It was like he dissolved into the darkness. Once he was out of sight, I did another slow walk around. Not for the truck. For her. Under the trailer again. Behind the trailer. Around the restroom building. By the trash cans. No footprints I could clearly make out. No dropped belongings. No torn clothing. If you'd told me no one had been under there all night, I would have believed it. Except I'd seen her, and she'd spoken to me. When I got back in the cab, I locked both doors out of pure instinct. My hands felt tight without shaking, like my body was bracing for something else. I sat there, engine off, window cracked just an inch, listening. The scraping never came back. No footsteps returned. The lot stayed quiet. Too quiet. Eventually, I rolled back out onto the highway. Dawn was still hours away. I've turned that night over in my head more times than I can count. Easiest explanation? She was running from him, and when he showed up, she bolted while I was looking at him. People can move fast when they're scared, but the clean ground under the trailer bothers me, and the way she vanished without a single sound, and how he appeared at the exact moment she whispered those words. I don't have a neat ending or a moral, just the truth. Someone hid under my rig that night. Someone else came looking for her. One of them was terrified. One of them was too calm. I never saw either again. But ever since then, every time I pull into a lot at night, I check under the trailer twice. Once for equipment, and once for company I never asked for. I run regional, not long haul. So yeah, lots of quick stops, gassing up, sipping coffee that tastes like burnt wishes, and getting back on the highway. This happened late 2019 outside Wichita. I remember because I was trying to stack miles before Thanksgiving, and I'd already decided that if I survived the day, I was treating myself to a motel pillow instead of my sleeper. The station I pulled into wasn't one of the big chains. Old pumps, a store that smelled like dust and fryer oil. Only two other vehicles around. A dark sedan parked off to the side, and a pickup fueling at the far lane. Inside wasn't any more inviting, but it was warm. I paid, washed my hands, grabbed a coffee, skimmed a text from my sister about her kids losing their jackets again, and walked out still scrolling. Bad habit, sure, but we all have one. I stepped up onto my driver's side step, coffee in hand, key between my fingers, and swung open the door. Then stopped, because someone was already sitting in my passenger seat. He wasn't rummaging. He wasn't leaning toward me. He wasn't even looking at me. He was sitting perfectly upright, hands resting on his knees, staring straight through the windshield like I'd just interrupted his meditation. For a second, my brain couldn't process it. I knew that door was locked. I'd heard it click. I always double check. The truck is my workspace, my house, and my only safe zone on the road. But there he was. "Can I help you?" I asked. No response. Didn't blink, didn't turn, nothing. He didn't look deranged or high. No twitching, no muttering. Just a middle-aged guy in a cap and jacket sitting in my rig like he belonged there. That made the hair on the back of my neck tighten more than anything. People acting normal in the wrong places, that's what gets you. I tried again, using that firm tone I learned in the Army. "Sir, you need to get out." Still nothing. And here's the problem. If I climbed in to grab anything, I'd have to swing my legs right past him. If he twisted with no leverage, he could get me into the sleeper before I even yelled. So I stepped back down as calmly as I could, shut the door, and walked straight back to the store. Inside, I told the cashier, "There's a man sitting in my truck. Passenger seat. I didn't let him in." He stared like I'd said there was an alien sitting in my seat. "I'm serious," I said. "I locked it." He called for Mike, and a big guy in a dirty polo came out. They exchanged a look like they weren't sure if I was exaggerating, hallucinating, or both. "Just walk with me," I said. "If he runs, he runs. I just don't want to approach alone." Mike nodded. We stepped outside. As we approached my truck, I noticed the passenger door was hanging slightly open. Mike climbed up first and swung it fully open. Empty. But the passenger floor mat wasn't empty. "Mud," he said. There were footprints, smeared and wet, on the mat, up onto the center console, even a streak on the dashboard. Like he'd crawled over everything on hands and knees. I scanned the lot. Nothing. No one walking, no engine starting. The sedan was still parked off to the side, dark and quiet. The pickup was gone. "Want us to call the cops?" Mike asked. I thought about it. The guy hadn't touched me or taken anything, and without a weapon or confrontation, the cops would file it under weird but not illegal. "Just hang out for a minute," I said. "I need to clear the sleeper." So I climbed up alone, locked the door behind me, and started checking my space like I was clearing a room. No one hiding, no movement, just my breathing in a space that suddenly felt too small. When I got out, the cashier was already backing toward the door. "Probably some tweaker," he said. "Happens." That was supposed to make me feel better. It didn't. Before I pulled out, I sat in the cab with the doors locked, staring at those fading footprints. He hadn't touched my wallet, my gear, my logbook. He didn't go through anything. He just came inside and sat. Like he was waiting for me. Like he wanted to see what I'd do when I found him. For weeks after, I checked that passenger seat every few minutes on the road, expecting to see a shape sitting there. Quiet. Still. Staring ahead. I've dealt with engine fires. I've dealt with idiots in convoys. I've sat through training where they shoot blanks inches from your head. But nothing shook me like turning my own handle and realizing someone had already made themselves at home without saying a single word. Most of my adult life has been spent hauling reefers up and down highways. Grocery loads, meat, frozen stuff. Nothing glamorous, nothing dramatic. The hum of the unit becomes background noise after your first year. By your 10th, it's practically a lullaby. Back in 2018, I was parked behind a warehouse in Memphis, waiting on a 5 a.m. dock appointment. Dead quiet part of the yard, dim lights, fence rattling every time the wind pushed it. 3 or 4 other trucks scattered around, most drivers asleep. It was a normal night, just paperwork, lukewarm coffee, and the reefer droning behind me. Around 1 a.m., I started hearing something that didn't fit. At first, it blended into the hum, like radio interference. Then I realized it was 2 low voices, right at the back doors of my trailer. Male voices whispering like they were arguing or planning something. I paused the radio. The whispering continued. My first thought was thieves. People pop seals and swipe a few cases all the time. I grabbed my flashlight and climbed down. The second my boots hit the gravel, the voices cut off. I walked the length of the trailer, light sweeping under the frame. Dust. Shadows. Nothing. I circled the bumper. Still nothing. No movement between trailers, no figures ducking behind the fence. I checked the seal. Solid. Numbers matched. Sound bouncing off the building, I told myself, happens sometimes in tight yards. I got back in the cab, locked up, and tried to finish my paperwork. About an hour later, the voices came back. This time, they weren't outside. They were coming from the wall directly behind my head, right where the trailer connects to the cab. Same 2 men. Same hushed, irritated cadence. Not loud, but way too clear for voices coming through steel and insulation. I sat up, listening. They didn't sound like they were in the yard anymore. They sounded like they were standing in a narrow hallway a few feet from me. I waited maybe a minute, trying to catch actual words. Couldn't. Just tone, one older, one younger, like the younger one kept disagreeing. Finally, I'd had enough. I grabbed the flashlight and climbed out again. I walked along the side, turned off the reefer to kill the white noise, and listened. Silence. Heavy, expectant silence. I went to the back, broke the seal after calling the number on my bill to warn them, and swung the doors open. Empty trailer. Cold air drifting out. Nothing else. Still, I climbed inside, walked the length of it, checked corners and walls, stomped the floor. No hollow spots, no hiding places, no footprints. I closed the doors and locked them again, and as I reached for the reefer controls, the whispering started again. This time, it wasn't near the trailer. It was floating across the lot, between the rows of trucks, moving slowly, like the speakers were pacing. Same two voices, drifting through the shadows, tone rising and falling like they were debating something I wasn't supposed to hear. I stood there with my hand on the unit, not moving, listening. The voices faded after maybe 10 seconds. No footsteps, no door slams, no tires crunching. Just gone. I climbed back into the cab and locked every latch. I turned everything off, the radio, cabin fan, even the map light, just to listen. 2 more times over the next few hours, the whispers came back. Once right behind the sleeper wall again. Once so close to the driver's side door that I could have sworn someone was standing beside the cab. Each time I thought about checking, I remembered how fast they went silent whenever I stepped outside. By the time sunrise showed up, I felt wrung out, drained, like the night tugged something out of me. When the warehouse opened, I walked over to check in. The security guard at the gate was in a decent mood, so I mentioned it. Half joking, half testing his reaction. Thought I had people messing around my trailer last night, I said. Heard them a few times, never could spot them. His grin dropped a little. What time? Between 1 and 3. He pulled up the yard camera, the one pointed at the back row where my truck was staged. Grainy feed, but good enough to recognize people. He rewound to around the time I first heard the whispering. At first, it was just my truck. Then 2 figures appeared at the edge of the frame. 2 grown men walking toward the back of my trailer. And the weirdest part? Everything in the frame was clear. The fence, the logos on the trailers, the gravel. But their faces were blurred. Not like someone hid their identity, more like the camera couldn't focus on them no matter how still they stood. We watched them circle the bumper, lean close to the doors. The guard rewound and played it again, frowning harder each time. A few seconds later in the feed, I stepped out of my cab with my flashlight, alone. They weren't there when you came out, he said quietly. We've had complaints like this before. He didn't qualify the word complaints, and I didn't ask. I drove away after unloading, but that morning stayed glued to the back of my mind. Not because I thought the men were ghosts or anything Hollywood like that. It was the way the whispers kept tracking me. Outside, inside, then drifting across the lot like they were circling. It was the way their voices stopped the second I opened the door. It was the way the camera tried to show them and didn't. Now, whenever I shut down behind a warehouse, I sit for a minute with the radio off, just listening. Because I learned something that night. Sometimes the dark doesn't need footsteps to let you know you're not alone. My rig's been mine long enough that I know it completely. Every strap, buckle, and the rattles it throws when the weather flips. When you're an owner-operator, you don't just drive your trailer. You memorize it. It's your livelihood, responsibility, and sometimes the only thing out here that actually makes sense. This run was simple. Standard freight out of Denver, headed through Wyoming toward Billings. No surprises on the paperwork, no weird instructions, no rushed deadlines. Just miles, sky, and wind. I hit a rest area just south of Cheyenne for a quick midday nap. Bright sun, wide open lot, maybe 6 or 7 vehicles scattered around. Not the kind of place where you expect anything strange. I parked facing the exit so I'd have a clean pullout, locked the cab, set a short timer, and leaned the seat back. I must have drifted off harder than I meant to, because when the alarm buzzed, I had that foggy moment where you forget what state you're in. Everything outside looked exactly the same. Same RV, same minivan, same quiet stretch of road. I stretched, cracked my neck, and reached for the ignition, then stopped. The wind on that stretch of Wyoming can get ugly fast. Better to check the straps in the trailer before I hit the road again. One of those save yourself a headache later habits. So I climbed down, did a fast walk around. Tires good, lines good, lights good, no one parked too close. Nothing out of place. Then I unlocked the trailer and swung the doors open. The pallets were exactly how I'd left them. Straps tight, wrapped clean, nothing shifted. But near the back wall, tucked right against the side where you'd almost miss it unless you walked all the way in, was a dark duffel bag. Not mine. Not on the manifest. Not something the shipper could have forgotten. I stepped closer, keeping one hand on a strap just to steady myself. The bag had weight, but not the heavy, solid feel of tools or equipment. More like clothing. Still, I unzipped it only an inch or two, just enough to peek inside. And instead of drugs or electronics or anything criminal looking, I saw kid stuff. Folded tiny shirts, a pair of little sneakers, a stuffed animal with an ear torn halfway off, a plastic toy truck, a small fleece blanket. Everything organized neatly. No wallet, no ID tag, no phone. The kind of bag a parent packs when they're heading somewhere overnight. But stuffed into my trailer, in the middle of a random rest area? No. I zipped it back up and stepped away like the thing was wired. There's a line you don't cross out here, and taking responsibility for mystery cargo is one of them. I climbed back into my cab, locked the door, and called dispatch. I explained the situation calmly. What I found, where I found it, that I hadn't touched anything more than a quick look. Dispatch went quiet for a second and said, "Don't move the bag. Don't keep driving. Highway patrol is on the way." So I sat, doors locked, curtain cracked just enough for the mirrors. Waiting. And waiting always feels longer when something's wrong. A few cars came and went. Nobody got near my truck. Nothing out of the ordinary. Then someone hit my door. Hard. It wasn't a friendly knock. The whole door shuddered. My pulse kicked up, not in a dramatic storybook way, just in that sharp, practical, you're not alone kind of way. I didn't move the curtain, didn't speak at first. Just listened. Another bang. Louder. Slides to the passenger side. Then another. Whoever it was, they weren't trying to talk. They weren't trying to ask for help. They wanted inside. I raised my voice just enough and said, "Law enforcement is already on the way." The noise stopped instantly. I didn't dare open the curtain further. Whoever was out there didn't want a conversation. A few minutes later, lights flashed across my mirror. Only then did I unlock the door and climb down. 2 troopers met me. I walked them through everything. The nap, the bag, the call, the banging. We went to the trailer together, one trooper standing wide, hand near his holster. I unlocked the doors and swung them open. The bag was gone. The pallets were untouched. Straps exactly the same tension as before. The troopers looked at each other before they looked at me. They asked their questions. Did I maybe move it? Did I see anyone near the trailer? Did someone park close, then leave? I answered everything honestly. Then one of them said, "We've seen cases like this. People stash a bag in a trailer, wait for the driver to stop, and come back for it. Sometimes it's drugs, sometimes personal items from a burglary. Sometimes it's worse. And then he added the part that actually stuck. They usually follow the truck until they get the chance. Whoever knocked on my cab had been watching long enough to care that I'd found the bag. They filed a report and cleared me to go, but I wasn't the same driver climbing back into that seat. Not after realizing someone had gotten close enough to my trailer, maybe close enough to me, to stash something without being seen, then bold enough to hit my door to reclaim it. I pulled back onto the highway with both locks down and my eyes checking the mirrors every few seconds. And even now, years later, I change a couple things about how I work. I lock the cab even for a 2-minute stretch. I walk the whole rig before and after every stop. And I open the trailer like I'm expecting company, because one time I basically was. People think we just haul freight, but that day, somebody tried to make me their mule, and they cared enough about that bag to come back for it in broad daylight. Whoever they were close enough to touch my door. And that's the part I still think about. I've been running flatbeds so long that a pre-trip feels like brushing my teeth. You don't think, you just walk the rig and fix whatever needs fixing. That morning outside Sioux Falls 2020, it was the same routine I'd done thousands of times. Still dark, cold enough to keep you awake, and quiet in that way. Truck lots get right before sunrise. I'd slept a few hours behind a small truck stop, then rolled out of the bunk once the sky started showing the faintest smear of gray. My load was steel, chained, and tarped the day before. I grabbed my gloves, hammer, and flashlight and started my lap. Driver's side first. Tap the tires, pull on chains, check binders, make sure nothing's shifted. Nothing remarkable. I came around the back of the cab, swinging the light across the frame, and that's when I heard it. Breathing, not mine. Tight, fast breaths coming from somewhere close. It was the kind of sound a person makes when they're trying to stay quiet but can't keep their nerves in check. I stopped. The breathing stopped. I lowered the beam toward the narrow space under the catwalk. The cramped area between the back of the cab and the front of the trailer where grease and dust like to collect. My first thought was a dog, maybe something injured that crawled up there for warmth. I bent down, angled the light, and 2 eyes reflected back at me. Human eyes. There was a man wedged under the catwalk, body twisted into a space that shouldn't reasonably fit anyone. Clothes muddy, face streaked with grime, fingers clamped onto the metal frame. In one shaking hand, he held a knife. Small, but not small enough to ignore. He stared at me like a cornered animal. "Get back," he breathed. You'd think I'd freak out, but my mind went straight into work mode. The same calm you get when a chain looks wrong or a strap snaps. Not fear, just clarity. I straightened up, stepped back so the truck blocked part of his view, and kept my hammer ready. With my other hand, I slid my phone out of my pocket. "You need to get out of there," I said. "I'm calling this in." He gave a short, ugly laugh, the kind people make when they're out of options. "Don't," he rasped. I didn't stop dialing. The moment he heard the ring, he moved. He didn't crawl out like a normal person. He burst from that gap on all fours, body twisting in a way that made no sense, almost spider-like as he skittered across the greasy catwalk and dropped to the ground. We locked eyes for a split second. His face was smeared, but not unkempt. Short hair, a week of scruff. Not a drifter, not someone living on the street. He looked like a guy who used to have a normal life, before something snapped. I raised the hammer slightly, letting him see I wasn't empty-handed. He didn't charge. He didn't speak. He just spun and bolted. Not toward the open lot, not toward the lighted truck stop building. He ran under the trailers, dropped low, scrambled beneath my flatbed, and disappeared into the line of parked rigs, weaving through the shadows where the lights couldn't reach. The sound of his... When I circled around the trailer to follow with my flashlight, he was gone. just a long row of steel legs, spinning shadows, and an empty dark. The dispatcher finally answered, and I gave them the short version. Armed intruder, fled the lot, uncertain direction. While waiting for law enforcement, security from the truck stop came out, a young kid with a vest and a radio. We did a sweep together, shining lights under every trailer, checking the fence line, the dumpsters, the corners of the lot. Nothing. Not a footprint we could clearly identify, not a piece of clothing, not a glint of metal from the knife. By the time the police arrived, the guy could have been a mile away or lying under another rig waiting for his next opportunity. One officer crouched and eyed the gap under my catwalk. "You sure someone fit under there?" he asked. "I saw him," I said. "I talked to him. I watched him crawl out." He didn't ask again. They checked the security cameras, but the angle only covered the pumps and part of the lot. You could see me walking around, shining my light, but the space behind my cab and most of the parked trailers stayed in shadow. After taking my report, the officers told me I handled it right. They also told me variations of this weren't unheard of. People hiding under rigs, sneaking onto trailers, stowing away for whatever reason. Drugs, running from someone, trying to get across states unnoticed. Or something else entirely. When they finally cleared the scene, I climbed into my cab, closed the door, and sat for a while. Not scared, just absorbing the fact that someone had been 3 feet from where I'd been sleeping. Not outside the truck, in it, hidden right in the machinery of it. Every driver knows the load can kill you if you get sloppy. Chains snap, coils roll, tarps catch wind, but none of that feels personal. None of it watches you from the shadows while you sleep. This did. Since that morning, my pre-trip has a new first step. Before chains, before tires, before anything else, I take my hammer and bang on the metal under the catwalk. Hard. Then I shine my light into every gap big enough for a body. Then under the trailer, behind the axles, everywhere someone could wedge themselves if they were desperate enough. Guys laugh when they see me do it, right up until I tell them this story. Then, the next morning, I hear them banging on their own rigs too. Flatbed work is dangerous, but it's the kind of danger you sign up for. Loads, weather, road conditions. Those are things you can prepare for, but the stranger hiding inches from your sleeper, you can't plan for that. You can only check for it every single time. And trust me, after Sioux Falls, I do. Every single time. If these stories made you realize the highway has way more than potholes to worry about, smash that like button, subscribe so you never miss the next scare, and tell me which moment hit you the hardest.